All right. Hello, everybody. I'm going to give you a quick introduction to the lab for today, Wednesday, which is a snow day, and recommend that those of you who are supposed to work on Wednesday still do the lab at some point during the day. And I'm going to take you through the lab and show you what you have to do. So in the first part of the lab, I'm asking you to play with the range function and just try different loops. So what you'll do is you'll open idle. So I have already idle open here. I'm going to run the Python shell. All right, and then I'm going to make this a little smaller. And then try different things like for n in range 10, print n. So make sure that you use the same variable to control the loop that you print, and then try different values inside the range function. So if I press enter here twice, then it generates all the numbers from 0 to 10, but not included. All right, so you're going to play with different versions with 2 arguments, 2 arguments, 3 arguments, and a negative argument, and you're going to see that you can go in decreasing order using that. So just a way for you to get more familiar with the range. So it's not really a function, but it's something that generates a sequence. And I'm going to ask you to use what you learned to generate a list of even numbers, a list of odd numbers, and a list of odd numbers in reverse order, going from 9 to 1, and 1 included. So what I'm showing you next is that you can do the exact same thing using an actual list of numbers. If you use brackets and you enumerate all the values, you're going to get the same result. So it's a different way. So we're playing with the semantic of Python, different way of generating lists, sequences. All right, then I'm going to ask you to actually using list generate the same output that you got for these 3 problems here in your first challenge. So challenge 2 is basically repeat challenge 1, but use a list of values rather than the range function. And then I'm going to get you ready to sing Old MacDonald Had a Farm. And so for that, we're going to play with list of animals instead of list of numbers. So I'm going to copy this, but I would recommend that instead of copying things, you just type it. I think this is a good way for your fingers to learn Python. List animals in a farm. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Save as. On my desktop, I'm going to call it lab2 sec for sequence. All right, if I run this, then I'm going to get my 3 animals listed one after the other. So that's the starting place, and then I'm going to ask you to do different things. And the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do is to actually count the animals. So here I have 4 animals, and I would like you to write a program that displays animal 1, a sheep, animal 2, a dog, animal 3, a bear, animal 4, a mouse. So sheep, dog, bear, mouse. And in order to generate a counter that is going to change every time through the loop, we use a trick that is used very often in Python. We use a variable, call it counter, because that's really what its goal is. It's going to count. We start at 0. I don't have to start at 0, but it's a good place to start here for this example. And then every time through the loop, so I'm printing it here, but as soon as I'm printing it, I'm changing it. And the way that I'm changing it is I'm saying counter gets counter plus 1. So whatever the value of counter is, I'm adding 1 to that, and I'm putting that back in counter. So if counter is 1, it's going to become 2. If counter is 10, it's going to become 11. So it's a nice way of creating a loop where some variable is incremented by 1 every time. So I can show you what happens when I do that. Counter equals 0. Counter equals counter plus 1. And I'm going to print counter and animal, and I need to make sure that they're both indented the same way, the print and counter. All right, and if I run this, you see that I'm getting 0 dog, 1 cat, 2 horse. All right, so I'm having two different things that are output, and that vary every time I'm running through the loop. So understanding this, can you have your program generate, well, first it will have to print your form contains, so that's just a string, and you can print it before you start the loop, and inside the loop, animal $, that's a string, then the counter, then another string, which is just the colon with a, so colon space a, and then the animal. So modify this loop so that you get that. And I would like it to start at 1. See, the loop that we use here starts at 0. So figure out a way to start at 1, 2, 3, which is more like what we like to do as human beings. Then you're going to generate the lyrics for Old MacDonald's Farm. If you don't know what that song is, you can play the first 2-3 minutes of this video and you'll figure it out. I must say that I didn't know this when I came to the States for the very first time, but learned it afterwards. Something that all kids in the States and probably Anglo-Saxon countries will know. So these lines here represent the lyrics. So I would like you to write a program that displays that. And all your program should do is take 4 values from a list in a list: horse, pig, dog, and cat, and generate this. So let me show you how to generate just the middle line. You'll figure out how to generate the rest, but I'd like to generate that in the loop for horse, pig, and dog. I'll just do 3. So for horse, pig, and dog, I want to print, so I'm going to use that as a comment. I'm putting a $, and then that's what I'd like to print. So that, and on this farm he had a horse, so that should be the animal instead of a string. So I'm going to print this first, put that between double quote, and on this farm he had a, so I don't need a counter anymore. Animal, and then after the animal name I want E-I-E-I-O, so this part here I'm going to copy, put it between double quote, and I have a string, and this I don't need anymore, this I don't need, and let's run that. Alright, and on this farm he had a horse, he had a pig, he had a dog, and you see that this is the middle line that I want to generate. So your program will have to generate a little bit more. And see that blank line? If you don't remember how to generate a blank line in between, it's very simple. You just use a print statement by itself. So here, print and nothing inside the parentheses will give us a blank line. All right, so figure out how to use this information to generate that. Then the next part, I'm showing you how to use the input function. So whenever you want to input something from the user, you can prompt the user and get the information in one pass by using input. You display what you want to see printed. The user enters something, and that ends up in a variable. So you use a variable name. So here I'm interested in the user's first name, so my variable is going to be called first name. There will be last name. And then I'm showing you how to input numbers. And numbers will require the use of the eval function. So you're going to play with this, understand that a little better, and then what I'm asking you to do is to play with input some more. You're going to ask the user for some information, a first name, last name, a box number, phone number, Smith ID, and then you display it nicely. Your program will display it, kind of aggregate the information in some ways and display that. And once that works, try to make it display a nice box around. So it's just playing with print statements, nothing too complicated here. And the length of the bars is unimportant, just something that looks nice, not even closing the box, just the beginning only of the box is fine. And then the part that you have to submit is a temperature converter. So it's very similar to what we did in class. You're going to write a program that is going to prompt the user for a temperature, a starting temperature, 20 in that case, that's what the user enters. going to prompt the user for a stopping temperature. The user is going to type 40 in this example, and your program will output one line first, which is Fahrenheit, Celsius, and then it will display all the Fahrenheit temperatures between 20 and 40 included. So the 20 and 40 have to match what the user entered. If the user had said 10, 20, then your loop would start at 10 and would go to 20. So whatever the user will enter will become part of your range function so that you can generate all the temperatures between what the user wants. And then for each Fahrenheit, your program will compute the equivalent Celsius. And for this example, I do not care about formatting this any better than that. And actually, the autograder will assume that your numbers will have a lot of decimal places. So don't try to format this nicer. We'll see that later, how to display information better. Oh, I should have class in 10 minutes, but since Smith is closed, we won't. All right, so I'm going to give you some information about how to do that. How do I generate a, let me comment this out. How do I generate a loop that goes some number of times that is defined by the user? Well, I can create two variables, start and stop. And because they need to be numbers, I'm going to use the eval function, eval input, start, question mark. I'm not going to make this very fancy. Stop equals eval input, stop, question mark, for n or temp in range, oops, misspelled, range, start, stop. And this may not be correct. You'll have to adapt that to do what you want. Print temp. All right, so let me run this. Start. I'd like to start at 10 and go to 15. And you see that it's going to print all the numbers between 10 and 14 because it's not going to go all the way to 15. So you have to figure out how to modify your program. And then the how you compute the Celsius when you have the Fahrenheit. So let's assume that the temperature is 35 Fahrenheit. So Celsius is the temperature in Fahrenheit minus 32 times 5 divided by 9. So let's verify that, temp and Celsius. Start at 20, go to 30. Okay, and now you see the last line, whoops, the last line here is what this print statement does. It prints temperature in Celsius. So 35 Fahrenheit is 1.6 Celsius. So now you have all the elements of what you need to do. Put this together in a nice way so that, see, I have a nice prompt for the starting temperature, a nice prompt for the stopping temperature, a blank line, a table header, Fahrenheit, Celsius, and then a bunch of temperatures in Fahrenheit and their equivalent in Celsius. And that's what you'll have to submit. All right, so that's the lab for today. I hope I've given you enough of a good start. So work at it and learn Python, and I hope you have fun.